and welcome to my review of Marvel's Avenger. This game have had its ups and downs, and I think it's funny that the game I played before Marvel's Avenger, Last of Us Part 2, had a pretty horrible, storyline, but pretty reasonable, fun gameplay. However, with Marvel's Avengers, it's the complete opposite. You see, they give us an okay storyline that I can tolerate. However, what I cannot tolerate is the boring, repetitive, unsmooth gameplay. But more about that later. So now, let's go through the entire storyline of Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers starts with a celebration for the Avengers. And it is here where we are introduced to the Avengers and our main character, Kamala Khan. And I have to say, I wasn't completely sold on Kamala as the main character of this storyline, but I have to say, they were able to do it pretty good. Why I wasn't really sold on her was because her comic books, in my opinion, is pretty terrible and they are not very popular. But I have to say, Square Enix did a pretty good job actually with her, so good job. However, just because Kamala was okay, doesn't mean that the rest of the team is a slam dunk. You see, the creator-director Sean Eskay have stated that he wanted to create an original story. And there is nothing wrong with that. But the weird thing is, if you want to create an original story, why did you choose the exact same characters that the MCU started with? To me, all of this just feels either extremely cheap that they couldn't just pay the original actor from the MCU to play this character, and I know that would have been expensive, but that's what I feel like, or it just feels extremely stupid that they couldn't just introduce other Marvel heroes. I mean, Marvel has a collection of hundreds of superheroes, and they picked the most basic heroes they could find. It just feels extremely stupid. Okay, let's continue with the story. In all this celebration, an attack starts and we finally get to play Earth's mightiest hero. And it sucks. No, but seriously, the gameplay here is a joke comparison with other superhero games like Batman and Spider-Man. More about the gameplay later. Anyway, after all of this, Captain America dies. And the aftermath after all of this is that civilians are developing superpowers, including our main character Kamala, and the Avengers are blamed for all of this damage, and this day will from now on be called A-Day. After the events of A-Day, the Avengers are split up and they all take separate paths. And now we start to play as Kamala. You see, Kamala's role is to bring the Avengers back, and here is where the villain is introduced. MODOK. And I have to say, I have seen him in the comic books and I never thought I would be able to take this guy seriously. I mean, just look at him in the comics. But I have to say, this game pulled it off pretty good actually, so yeah, good job. Anyway, Kamala tracks down Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, and shortly after, the heroes come together. After all heroes are gathered, a big fight breaks out between Tony and Bruce. And here is where the team breaks up again. For around 5 minutes. And after they break up, Kamala makes some kind of bullshit speech that's pretty much bring them all back together. Seriously, they become like angry at each other and they leave for 5 minutes, and after that they all return, except for, more about him later. So, now when the team has reunited again for the second time, Tony has a plan involving Hank Pym and his micro particle, whatever the hell it's called. And after a pretty good boss battle, Tony shows off a new suit, he travels to space, and here is where the big reveal is. Captain America is still alive. Whoa! No, but seriously, I was not surprised like at all. And that's actually very annoying things. I mean, I didn't really believe in it at all, and I guess that's the point, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, after this, Iron Man and Captain America are able to escape the space station, and later they are saved by Thor, and now the entire team are gathered again, and now we are in the final chapter of this game. So, let's go. When we play the final boss battle, we play all the Avengers, and everything ends with Kamala, who takes MODOK down. Now Kamala has become an Avengers. She returns home and her father knows all about this. And here is where the game ends. We as well get a end credit scene that's supposed to like hype us up for the future of this game, but I'm not seeing myself being so hyped for the future of this game universe. So what did I like about this game? The story itself is pretty good. It gives us a typical superhero story. So, well done. As well, I like the acting. I just feel kind of bad for Troy Baker, who portrayed Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, because first he was in Last of Us Part 2, and now he's in Avengers. I mean, 2020 is definitely not his year. I mean, come on, I just feel bad for Troy Baker. But the same thing with Last of Us, it's not the actor's fault that the game itself is bad. However, in Last of Us, the reason why the game was bad was the story. In this case, we will talk about later why this game is kind of shitty. But let's continue with what I liked about the game. And I have to say, MODOK, the villain in this game, great done. And I have to say, all the other villains are really good as well. I mean, we have Taskmaster, and we have the Abomination. I have to say, I actually very much enjoyed this villain. But again, I kind of feel annoyed that they still are using typical or villain who has appeared in the MCU movie, because both Abomination have done it and Taskmaster have done it. The only one who hasn't yet is MODOK, and I really am interested in that, how that would look in a live action movie. But that is pretty much what I like about the game. So, let's go into what I don't like about this game. When I talk about what I disliked about this game, I'm gonna actually compare this game to both the MCU, the DC Extended Universe, and of course the latest superhero games like the Batman series and the Spider-Man game. First, let's talk about how this gaming verse is built up. When I started playing this game, I realized something. They did the same mistake that DC Extended Universe did. You see, the reason why the DC Extended Universe failed to make a universe as good as the MCU is because it had a bad build-up. You see, in the MCU, we had 5 movies before something big happened. But in the DC Extended Universe, we had Man of Steel, and then we had Batman vs. Superman, which is pretty big, actually, storyline in like the DC comics. It's basically Civil War, but in the DC universe. So to me, it felt very dumb to begin this gaming verse with an Avengers movie. It just felt very stupid. As I've said, the gameplay in this game is one of the biggest weaknesses of this game. You see, I have said that the gameplay here feels unsmooth and is repetitive. What I mean with repetitive is that it feels like I'm doing the same thing all the time with no variation. Like, seriously. And the worst thing is, it doesn't just feel that way when I play like Hulk, just play like Hulk, or just play like Iron Man. It feels repetitive all the time. It doesn't really matter which character I feel, because all the character, in my opinion, feels like the exact same character, but with minor details. And that's just, that's just how they failed so hard. And what I mean when I say as well that this gameplay feels unsmooth, I'm gonna compare it to Spider-Man and the Batman series. You see, the reason why these games had so great gameplay is because they were so smooth. And when I mean smooth, I mean that it was in a way satisfying of playing the game. Because the problem with Avengers is that the story is okay, but the gameplay is really, really shitty. But with games like Spider-Man and Batman, it was fun to actually play the game as well. The story wasn't just good, the gameplay was good as well. And I think that's in a way because it as well made us feel like we were these heroes. The games made us feel like we can take down multiple enemies without any problem. The game as well made us feel like we can swing around in New York City without any problems. And of course, all of those things are satisfying. It was so much good, and I just feel annoyed that this game couldn't learn something from this game. Even if there's not similar to like these superheroes, it just feels like they should just have been more smooth as a gameplay. This game should have been more smooth. And of course, we have the microtransaction in this game that is completely useless, like all microtransactions in games, so yeah, I don't really like them. And we as well have minor bugs that really ruin the game for me. I mean, there is even one part in the final chapter of this game where I became invisible, and as well my enemies became invisible, which was hard to fight them, which led to me dying a few times, actually, just because I couldn't see my enemies. So yeah, that was a big minus. But what is my final thoughts about this game? Marvel's Avengers is a game that wants to give us the same feeling that the MCU and Marvel's Spider-Man gave us. And they completely fail. The gameplay is boring, the microtransactions feels like the creator themselves didn't believe in this game. There weren't too many bugs in this game, but consider that this game got delayed and we still got bugs in this game, it still feels so fucking stupid of the game creator. And of course, the storyline itself was okay, but it doesn't save the game from all these problems that the game had. And that is why I'm gonna give the game 2 Black Widow asses. Seriously, how many times in 2020 are games gonna fuck me over? We had Last of Us Part 2, and now we have Marvel's Avengers, and seriously, is it possible that Cyberpunk is gonna suck as much as this game? I mean, I don't want it to, but it could happen. Jesus Christ. Anyway, thank you for watching my review of Marvel's Avengers. And until next time, see ya!